to today's podcast. This, I believe, MJ, is our third podcast.
Episode 3.
Or episode 3.
Off
First
the cuff.
podcast, episode 3. And so today we're going to talk about K9, the K9 program here at Virginia Tech. But most importantly, we thought it would be cool to have a father and son duo because they both their fathers were K9 officers. And so we thought it would be cool to have that. So we're going to have actually episode 3 and 4 will be both of them. So today we're going to focus on the older Reece. The first, well, he's the second Reece, I guess, as far as K9 goes. What do you think?
Yeah, no, that sounds great. It's going to be interesting talking to you guys. So, yeah, if you guys wouldn't mind, I guess it's both introducing yourself briefly to the audience.
I guess I'll be the older Reece,
Yeah.
the better Reece. I'm Officer Jaret David Reece. I have been with the department now for 21 years. Prior to that, I was 2 years in Plant City, Florida. I grew up in Lakeland, Florida, where my father was an officer for Lakeland PD, who was also a K9 during his stint there for about 4 or 5 years. So,
My name's AJ Reece, and I was just recently hired as an officer, starting the academy here in a couple weeks, actually. Born and raised here, lived my whole life out in the country, so that's all I know.
Awesome. Well, yeah, it's great to have you guys on here.
So, Jaret, you were a sheriff's deputy, you said, I believe, before you came here?
I was a police officer for Plant City, which is in Hillsborough County, which is the same county as Tampa. So,
How long did you do that for?
I was there for approximately about 2 years.
2 years. And what brought you to Blacksburg? What brought you to this region?
Well, women is the first one. My wife and I, kind of do a little quick story. My wife and I dated in junior high. We're friends all the way through high school, friends out of high school, and then reconnected later on in life. And she was the head softball coach for Radford University at the time. And so when I came up here to visit her, I fell in love with the area. I'm a very outdoorsy person, love fishing and hunting. Everything up here was green, and everything in Florida was brown and filled with crazy people. And so I kind of wanted to get away from that. But yeah, I fell in love with the area and decided, you know what, instead of living in Florida and dealing with all that, and all my family's still there, we decided to move to Virginia. And her mom and her brother were already up here, so we kind of took over the land, and we've settled, got about 35 acres, and decided this is where we're going to plant ourselves and build a family.
So your dad, you said, was a police officer. So how many dogs did he have, and did you grow up the whole, from the time you were a little kid with police dogs, or was it a short period of time? Or?
It was a little bit of a short period of time, and it was during, I guess, more the impressionable years. It was around when I was about probably 15 or 16 years old, and he ended up he had 2 dogs. One was named Buck, and the other one was named Bud, short for Budweiser, but you couldn't say Budweiser. It had to be named Bud. So both German Shepherds. I used to go and help watch them do training, laid some tracks for them, and let them come find me. So that kind of was my break into the canine world. And I realized at that point in time, that was what my dream job was going to be. When I worked at Plant City, I helped the canine guys there. I would go take the sleeve and go hide in the school, and the dogs would come find me. So I just knew that was what path of career that I wanted to go. And so I tried to set myself up as best I could. I used to help train with Weaver and them here as well. And then when Officer Weaver, when he went down as far as a medical condition, they kept the dog but needed a new handler. And so I was chosen for that position. So the dog already knew what to do. I just had to keep him on the street and just let him do the work. So that was kind of a nice avenue to go there.
So basically, the dog needs you to drive him to.
I needed to.
places,
I was
the Uber.
I was the Uber. I was the
Feed
Uber for the
him.
canine. Yeah, make sure he was fed. He was a great dog, and just to a little shout out for Boris, he was actually there's no national monument for canines killed in the line of duty. It's up to each individual state. And here at Virginia Tech, we had the honor of receiving the canines who have been killed in the line of duty. And it's over by VetMed. And Boris was actually the model for that statue. So every once in a while when I feel nostalgia, I'll go over there and I'll see my old dog. So it's kind of cool, even though he's already passed. And I've had two other dogs since then. Currently in the handler for Zuka, which he's a great dog too. But that's kind of neat to have your canine as a model, forever.
Now, did you, when your dad was a canine officer, did he bring them inside the house? Did you have a kennel out back?
He had a kennel out back, and that was kind of always the thing. And it was kind of always my rule too. Was the dogs were never allowed out unless he was out there with us. That's sort of my rule too. Is no one lets the dog loose unless I'm out there with them as well, just so I can kind of control and kind of monitor. And that's why I feel like shepherds, in my opinion, they become, and it takes I give it a year so they can kind of bond with the family too. And that way they're just kind of part of the family.
Do you have brothers and sisters as well that interacted with your police dogs?
I had two sisters, and they didn't interact as much as I did. They weren't more enthralled. It was just to us, it was one of Dad's, part of his uniform, part of the tools that he used, and we didn't mess with him very much. It was only whenever he was around that we were allowed to go and see the dog and play with the dog or whatever.
So how did he feel when you became a canine officer? Did he have the opportunity to come up and share that experience with you?
Not so much. I mean, I know he's proud. I know, and he's still alive. So, yes, we talk about it from time to time. We don't talk really don't talk a lot about work very much. It's kind of been our rule almost. A little bit of stuff that we talk about, and then he'll kind of give me a little bit of pointers here and there. But for the most part, we just kind of go, and I mean, he's been up here and he's seen the dogs that I've had. He's interacted with them. Was very impressed with Boris, of course, because he was an awesome dog. But yeah, so it's kind of one of those. A lot of that stuff I've had to learn on my own, to be honest with you.
MJ, you have any questions about canine or anything?
I got a life question there. So moving from down there in Florida up here, what pops to your mind is the big difference between working in that jurisdiction down there in Florida and working at the university here?
One of the big differences is you're coming from a state and you come into a commonwealth, and that was a real big difference of the different. I'm having to deal with a magistrate. We didn't have that down there. You just filled out an affidavit and then you took them to jail and you dropped them off and you came back to work. But here you have to go and you have to swear out warrants, you have to swear out your probable cause and that type of stuff. That was a big difference for me. The people up here are a lot more friendlier, I would say. Down there in Florida, it's a very much it's just I've taken AJ down there. It's a different world down there.
Different environment.
It is
Totally
it's
down there.
I mean, where I came from, we had almost a car chase every night. We had shootings and stabbings. I remember one of the things that we had a infant who fell into a retention pond that we had to pull out and try to revive. It was very different. It was a very almost Wild West, if you would. Mm-hmm. So you come up here and everybody. I remember driving around, and this is sort of a difference. Driving around with my wife, and we were going down Route 8 toward Floyd, and people when they drive, they would just kind of put their hands up as a wave, and it disturbed me to the point I asked my wife, I'm like, "Do you know all these people? Why are they waving at us? Because make them stop, because that's very uncomfortable. Because in Florida, it's just you don't wave at people, you just go." So that was one of those. It's a very laid back lifestyle here. It's one of those that I'll get to it when I get to it, or I'll get there when I get there. And 8 o'clock doesn't necessarily mean 8 o'clock. It's around 8ish.
Living on ranch time.
Ranch time. So down there, it's a very fast paced go, and up here, it's a little more laid back, which is more what I've gotten accustomed to.
So when you moved up here, what was your first job here?
My first job here, when I got up here, was working as a temp agency for Corning. I did that for a little while, and then we moved up here in like November, and it snowed, which I wasn't a fan of that. Still not a fan of that, but probably like February, I got hired on at Tech, and I was actually a security officer, a salary security officer. We used to call walking units. So we would walk the campus. And there was about 3 of us. 2 were salary and 1 was wage. and we would walk around the campus and code in at different times in the night, stuff like that. So we would call in anything that we would see. Um,
Wait. You're telling me you didn't drive around in a nice
no, no,
pickup truck?
did
It's very
not.
nice now.
We walked around, and we went through a lot of boots walking around the campus. But another good thing is, before I got hired on, was I already knew campus.
Right.
And so I already had that step ahead, and that's sort of the footsteps that I wanted my son to follow as well. Was he got hired on here in July as a security officer who locks the buildings and does jump starts and whatnot. A lot of things that we don't want to do, but he knows the campus, and so he'll actually be a step ahead of some of the other people he's going to the academy with when they come out. That he'll already have a leg up too. So I felt that helped me, and I hope that'll help him as well.
So how long were you a security officer here?
I was a security officer here from February to July.
And then you transitioned to go to the police academy, and when you want to be canine, because obviously that's when I became a police officer. Before that, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to be a police officer. I saw the canine trucks, I saw the dogs, thought it was so cool.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to get to that position?
So I started here in 03, and in 09 is when I became a canine officer. Prior to that, I was a sergeant on patrol. So I actually took a self-demotion, and along with that was the decrease in money as far as my salary, just to do the dog, just to take over the dog. But that's what, and to me, that's what meant to me, that I was willing to do that. I was willing to take that sacrifice, even though, a little 2 months later, they bumped up the sergeant's $11,000. So that was a little, but I probably still would have kept the dog.
Well, there's a lot of perks and benefits to being canine. You get a take-home car.
That's
You're in the
nice.
same car every night,
Right.
that kind of thing. There are disadvantages to it because you have a lot of dog hair.
Yes,
Everywhere.
Dogs will do different things in the back of that canine vehicle over a period of time.
I knock on wood that all the dogs I've had have never had any accidents in the car at all. So, and I try to be very regular of every couple hours, letting them get out and stretch their legs and do what they need to do, what dogs need to do. So,
Now, when they're skunked,
right.
different story.
We just got back from New Mexico for taking my daughter out there, and my wife said that she let him out to go run around and use the bathroom, and he found a skunk, and so that's dealing with that now. That's nice.
How did your police dog do with dealing with either if you had a retired dog at home or you had other animals? How did your police dog interact with them?
I didn't really understand it that well, and the only one I've had was whenever I had Boris, and he retired, and I ended up picking up Bax, and so Bax basically took over his kennel, took over his car, and he really wasn't understanding of why he couldn't go. He had a issue of DEM, was what they call it, and it's basically nerves running along their backbone. It was causing paralysis on his back legs, which is why Boris had to retire. But I think after a while he kind of was like, okay. And every once in a while I would do stuff around the house. I would do a hide for him of a narcotic odor, something that was soaked in the odor of it, not truly any dog. We don't carry that, but and I would put it out for Boris, and he would get excited. Because he was still, okay, I'm still working. I can still do it. So we would do that every once in a while. So he transitioned to being a family dog really well.
Probably one of the greatest dogs our family's had.
Yeah.
Truly.
In my canine career, I can remember certain incidents. You do a lot of different things. You do a lot of tracks. You do a lot of drug searches. You do a lot of things. But there's always that one or two that are really special to you. And did you have, obviously, you've been doing canine since 2009. Anything that you could share with us on a good find or a good effort, a good track or something like that?
With Boris, we did a track, and we found a guy hiding in some tall grass, and the people were wanting to go where he thought he was going, and the dog led us to where he was at. And the reason why we found him was we heard one of the cops start, hollering at him, put your hands in the air, let me see your hands. Bax, because Bax was not very, his service life was not very long. It was only maybe a couple of years. I can't remember, But I know with Zuka, one of the past ones we did, we were searching for a guy, and again, the county units were telling us that he's probably in the house, that he knew where the house was. The guy was familiar with it, and when we started the track, we started along the road, but then we took a right and went up a hill. And as we started going up the hill, one of the other officers with me had a thermal, and they started saying that, hey, I'm picking up a heat signature ahead. And so, holding the dog up, I called out and did a call out, and of course the guy let us know that he was there. So that was a good find. That dog was leading us in that direction. So, like I said, they're a tool. It's really neat being in this side of watching the dogs work and watching them in live situations of succeeding, and that just helps. And it doesn't help us; it also helps the other agencies going, that dog can track. He knows what he's doing, so that helps. That helps a lot too. And with Zuka and all the dogs I've had are apprehension dogs, which are very few in this area. So when things really get bad, that's when we really get called out. So it is nice to have, and it's nice to have a demonstration so we can show that to the students of what some of these dogs are capable of.
You know, we focused primarily on this episode on you, but the next one we're going to do in a few minutes, we're going to actually do our 4th episode, and it's going to be primarily focused on AJ. What do you got for our legal corner?
Back to Michael's legal corner, and we can even get a guest input on this. So, just as a reminder, if you're tuning in kind of for the first time for this episode, I like to toss out a law or two that's applicable to the community and talk about how that matters to us. So today I wanted to highlight fire equipment, messing with fire equipment on campus. Most of our campus community obviously knows we're not messing with fire extinguishers, pole stations, anything like that, but some people just make some bad decisions and think it's just all kind of a funny prank to mess with the fire stuff, when in reality it's not. It's against the law. So let me highlight here 18.212, calling or summoning emergency medical services or firefighting apparatus without just cause. So this one is pulling the fire alarm. So any person without just cause who maliciously activates a manual or automatic fire alarm in any building, whether or not the emergency medical services or fire apparatus responds or not, is guilty of a Class 1 misdemeanor. So here's some tips for the campus community here. We have, in conjunction with emergency management and other partners, we have put in some paste on almost all of those pole stations on campus. So if you pull it without good reason, you're going to have this paste all over your hands, and they've put this out in the community, and you're going to get found out. And we're going to charge you if we can. We'll ask both of you guys. AJ, you've gone out for false pole alarms.
I've gone out to several of them, yes.
Was that a lot of fun? Did you enjoy that? Was that a good use of your time?
It's a lot of running around, kind of like the chicken with their head cut off, just trying to find where the alarm could be or who pulled it. So it's really a big waste of time, kind of our resources. You know, everyone's out there looking for fire, trying to smell for things, thinking we're going to be in danger, and then you get there and there's nothing happening.
Yeah. Favorite call of yours? False fire alarms? Do you love going to those?
No, they're like AJ said, they are and they're there for, you know, when an emergency arises, and we have had those. We have recently had one of the scooters catch fire in a dorm, and so we need to get there and we need to locate that. Having these false ones, and I've actually been on one where one took a fire extinguisher and thought it'd be funny and go in their roommates and start spraying the fire extinguisher when there's no fire at all. So I have had to deal with that as well.
You know what? That's a great point. I'll throw in a bonus code section because we love Michael's Legal Corner. Messing with those fire extinguishers, like I said, some people think that's funny for some reason. Well, guess what? 18.2.151.1, injuring or tampering with firefighting equipment. Any person who injures, destroys, removes, tampers with, or otherwise interferes with any equipment used to fight fires is also a Class 1 misdemeanor. In the past year alone, investigations, I get to read a lot of reports, we have charged people with both of those code sections. So don't be messing with that stuff on campus. Like I said, most of the community knows that's not a joke. We don't play with that. But if you just decide to ruin everybody's night by pulling the fire alarm or mess with the fire extinguisher, it's going to end poorly for you, and you're going to get in serious trouble with the university as well.
Well, you know, our show's called Off the Cuff, so we're going to end this episode with Off the Cuff. So, MJ, do you have some off the cuff things.
I got some off the cuff questions for you, so we'll go rapid fire. Just tell me, what comes to you kind of off the cuff. All right, first is burger or pizza?
Pizza.
Pizza, going with pizza. All right, sitting at home, would you rather watch a movie or a TV show?
Movie.
And I know we talked about this on your road trip. If you're road trip, would you rather go music or podcast?
A little bit of a mix sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes it kind of depends. This was 24 hours, and so the music could only go so far.
I'll say trying to stay awake. It's a little bit different if we're just
I say
cruising.
music at first, depending on how far it is.
Yeah.
If it's a short ride, 6 hours or less, music. When I'm with my wife, I don't get to listen to music. We have to talk, but
That's fine.
Hopefully she doesn't listen to that. But we actually started listening to podcasts, and that was kind of neat. So
Okay. And vacation, mountains or beach?
definitely mountains.
mountains.
Definitely mountains.
All right.
Living in Florida, I could care less if I see sand.
And the last one I got for you is ice cream or cake?
I'm gonna say ice cream.
All right.
Mom mixes both, so
Hey, why not have a little bit of both? All right, so I think that's kind of what we got for this episode. So tune in next time whenever we drop the next one to get kind of the other side of the family equation here.